I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Sierra Leone. Colleagues, I thank Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Mr. Ramez Alakbarov, for his important briefing. The situation in the Middle East remains complex and fragile, even if it is currently relatively stable in some respects, reflecting emerging understandings on the cessation of hostilities across the region, including in Lebanon, despite recent missile strikes, and Yemen. We also note positive development in Syria and the encouraging prospect for consolidating effort towards lasting peace in the country. In this statement, we will focus on the situation in the Middle East, occupied Palestinian territory. Since the Council adopted Resolution 2803, with a clear sense of urgency to maintain the ceasefire in Gaza and to implement a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict, Sierra Leone has, in its explanation of vote of 17th November, already set out its understanding of the legal effects and parameters of the resolution. Today, Sierra Leone will therefore focus on what it means to implement this resolution in good faith. We do so against a sobering reality. 6 weeks into the ceasefire, Palestinian civilians continue to be killed and injured in Gaza. Continued missile and air strikes in the Strip, notwithstanding the declared cessation of hostilities, raises serious concerns about compliance with both the resolution and international humanitarian law. Implementing Resolution 2803 in good faith requires that the ceasefire be respected in fact and not only in words. We therefore call on the government of Israel to strictly uphold the ceasefire, exercise maximum restraint, and fully respect its obligations under international humanitarian law and human rights law, including the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution. Likewise, we demand that Hamas and all other armed groups cease immediately and unconditionally all acts which constitute a breach of the ceasefire and continues to endanger innocent lives. At the same time, development in occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, remain deeply troubling. Reports of continuing settlement expansion, settler violence, home demolitions, and land confiscation and movement restrictions, as well as other measures aimed at altering the demographic and territorial character of the occupied Palestinian territory, are contrary to international law and relevant UN resolutions. Occupation and annexation in whole or in part remain illegal under international law, and any attempt to entrench such practices undermine both regional stability and the viability of a two-state solution. Implementing Resolution 2803 in good faith therefore also requires that these continuing illegal practices in the West Bank cease, as they directly erode confidence and the prospect for a just and lasting peace. Resolution 2803 endorses the comprehensive plan and calls on all parties to implement it in its entirety, including maintenance of the ceasefire in good faith and without delay. It also establishes critical mechanisms to give practical effect to that plan, including the Board of Peace as a transitional administration with international legal personality and an international stabilization force to help secure and stabilize the situation in Gaza. Despite the urgency and needs of the civilian population in Gaza, the BOP has still not been appointed and operationalized. The terms of reference for the BOP are unknown, and Palestinian participation, including the Palestinian Authority, unclear, leaving a serious gap in governance, coordination, and oversight of the transitional arrangements foreseen in the resolution. Sierra Leone therefore calls for urgent designation and appointment of the BOP's leadership and members with broad-based regional and international support so that it can begin discharging its responsibilities without further delay, in line with the participation and aspirations of the people of Palestine. We likewise urge member states working with the BOP to take the necessary steps to establish and deploy the ISF as mandated by the Council. The ISF's role in helping to stabilize the security environment, protect civilians and humanitarian operations, support the demilitarization of Gaza, and assist vetted Palestinian police force is central to consolidating the ceasefire and preventing a relapse into large-scale violence. Its deployment should be accompanied by full cooperation from all parties in accordance with international law and with due regard to the views and needs of the affected population. On the humanitarian front, implementing Resolution 2803 in good faith means ensuring safe, sustained, and unhindered humanitarian access, respecting the humanitarian principles, and putting in place the financial arrangement envisaged for Gaza's recovery and reconstruction. Humanitarian personnel and facilities must be respected and protected. The flow of food, water, medical supplies, shelter materials, and other essential goods must be facilitated, and assistance must be used solely for peaceful purposes and not diverted. Sierra Leone calls on donors, international financial institutions, and relevant UN entities to step up their support, and on all parties to remove any remaining obstacles to a comprehensive humanitarian response. Colleagues, implementing Resolution 2803 in good faith also carries a clear legal and moral dimension. All parties, state and non-state actors alike, are bound to respect international law, including international humanitarian law, international human rights law, and the Charter of the United Nations. Continued missile strikes in Gaza in the context of a declared ceasefire and the persistence of illegal practices in the West Bank cannot be reconciled with those obligations. Silence or inattention at this juncture will risk normalizing non-compliance and further entrenching impunity. This is not the time to be silent, nor to turn our attention away. Sierra Leone therefore forcefully calls on the State of Israel to halt all actions inconsistent with its obligations under international law, including unlawful use of force in Gaza and illegal settlement-related activities and other coercive practices in the West Bank. Secondly, we demand that Hamas and all other armed groups cease all armed activities, fully respect the ceasefire, and refrain from any conduct that endangers civilians or undermines the prospect for peace. Thirdly, we call on prospective members of the BOP and contributors to the ISF to move swiftly to operationalize these mechanisms and ensure that they function with transparency, accountability, and full respect for international law. Sierra Leone encourages the wider international community and the United Nations to sustain high-level political engagement, provide the necessary resources, and use all diplomatic tools at their disposal to promote strict compliance with Resolution 2803 and other relevant resolutions. In closing, we must reaffirm that only a just and lasting peace, grounded in international law and realized through a negotiated two-state solution with Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security, can address the root causes of this conflict. Implementing Resolution 2803 in good faith, imperfect as it may be, is a necessary step towards that goal. We owe it to those who have lost their lives, to those who continue to suffer in Gaza and the West Bank, and to future generations to ensure that the commitment under the comprehensive plan are translated into concrete, life-saving action on the ground in support of peace, stability, and security. I thank you. I resume my function as President of the Council. I would like to remind speakers to maintain appropriate standards of tone and content in their remarks and uphold the respect this chamber and the matter under consideration deserves. And I'll give the floor to the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine.
Mr. President, allow me at the outset to thank you for convening this meeting and to commend your presidency for highlighting defense